remember, the clock is ticking because our legacy program ends the end of June this year. So we have now less than 6 months to finish everything in the legacy program. And I have seen in both my 2 clubs and also in the clubs in our area and our division, I've seen so many people finish up what they were doing in the legacy programs and really start to get going on the pathways. And that's very encouraging to see. Let's get going. If you have any questions, again, type it into the text box and we will stop at several places. But if there's something, Carolyn or Catherine, that you see, make sure you stop me and interrupt if there's a real serious question that needs to be answered right then. All right, what we're going to learn tonight, as Carolyn went over, is the access to the Basecamp Manager. And as there are a couple access methods, pathways, if you will, to pathways, there are a couple ways to get in as Basecamp Manager also. And we're going to look at where we can get to the tutorials and resources, which are very good specifically for the Basecamp Manager. I say that the very main job for Basecamp managers is level completion. And we'll look at the emails that we get, and I don't know why that panel's up there. The emails that we get, and also the approvals that we need to take. We're going to look at also viewing the member transcripts, and it's not very obvious when you first get into the Basecamp Manager area how you see each member's transcripts. But it's really good to do that. Sometimes it helps to see exactly where they've gotten. Like I've gotten emails that say, I think I marked this project as complete. Did I? And it's good that I can go in there and I can see whether that project is marked complete or not. That obviously that happens in the first level or so, but that does happen. And the other thing is getting in, and the thing I like to do is I like to print their level completion certificates. They can do it themselves, but I like to do it, print it, and present it as a celebration at a club meeting, because just like we used to celebrate getting your competent communicator, same kind of thing. Then we're going to be looking at the member progress dashboards. There are 5 different dashboards. The first 3 can be important, can be relevant to us. The last couple, not so much unless you're in a really big club. And we might have members with printed paths. This is one of the questions that's going to come up, and in which case the Basecamp Manager has more responsibilities than with the online. And also we'll talk just very briefly about this option that we have called external training requests. Okay, so let's just review, and this is something that I put into the last webinar, is the logical hierarchy for a member to get in. We have our Toastmasters login, and from Toastmasters login, we can get into pathways either by clicking on the little pathways menu and getting to the pathway start page, or I can go through my profile. That was new last summer. And then we get to the Basecamp start page as a member Basecamp start page. And then of course we have our educational transcript, which has 1 or more paths, as well as other learning material that we've chosen to look at. We get to our different path levels and of course each individual project. But with Basecamp Manager, it's different. We start in the same place. We still log in as ourselves to Toastmasters.org. And then we go, again, either our profile or to the pathway start page. But then we go to our clubs. When we say I want to log in as Basecamp Manager, and again, only those club officers who are the Vice President of Education, the Secretary, and the President have the ability to log in as Basecamp Manager for that club. You get to the Basecamp Manager page, start page, which is different Basecamp start page, and we'll see that. And in that, we will see that we have our pending requests, our member progress charts, our tutorials, and also via the member profile, we can get to our education transcripts. Now, I want to mention that I'm doing this all with PowerPoint, And the reason is because it gives me words, but it also, I'm much more sure of it. Last time, if we have time at the end, I will try to go live to show you the screens and so forth. But I know last time it froze up and it didn't work. And that was why I was really glad I had PowerPoint, where I've captured a lot of the screens. So the screens do look a lot like what you'll see in your own login. Okay, just as when we're members, we can get to Basecamp through various access routes. We can get to Basecamp as a Basecamp manager, also through various access routes. So the first is the more, I'll say traditional, what's been around longer, is to click on the Pathways menu item in Toastmasters.org and just then click on Go to Basecamp. Now, believe it or not, and I covered this in the previous webinar, this click Go to Basecamp actually does different things depending on who you are. If you are not a Basecamp manager and you're just a member in one club, which is the majority of people, of your members, they will go directly to the Basecamp start page. They won't go to what's called the Pathway start page. But if you are a Basecamp member, or if you are a member of multiple clubs, you will first go to the Pathways start page. And that is, oh, first of all, I wanted to ask a question. And again, you can let Carolyn know or type into the text box. I just want to ask if you or any members of your clubs are members of multiple clubs. I'll say yes on mine, and I won't type it into chat. But those of you who have members who are in your club who have multiple clubs, there are a few areas that I will cover. They will arise as we go through some of these that are affected because of having multiple members or someone who is a member of multiple clubs and what impact that will have. All right, so when we go to the Pathway start page, I am a member of multiple clubs. I mentioned that. And so I see in the middle of the page a select your club drop down. Most members will not see that at all. In fact, most members will only have the go to Basecamp in this middle panel. And in fact, only club officers will have this over here, this choose a path for another member. And that's not just the Basecamp managers. That's actually for any officer. And to choose a path for another member, we are choosing a printed path only. Because if I want to choose a path for myself, then I will continue to path selection. If I want to, anyone who is going to access their path through the web, which is 99.5% of Toastmasters worldwide, you will continue and you will select your path yourself. As a Basecamp manager, you will see here a login as Basecamp manager. Now, if you want to know something very interesting, I'll go ahead. First of all, I wanted to mention that the Navigator, if you haven't seen the Navigator, if you haven't looked at it, that is a booklet that new members get. So you should be aware of it. Your club should probably have one. Your club should have gotten one when your Pathway Guide first came, again, almost 2 years ago now. And the Navigator is, again, what new members get. It has areas that not only describe pathways, but also describe the club situation, what the different officers do, responsibilities are, what the different roles are within a club meeting, and so forth. So a lot of that back of the book information of the competent communicator is in the Navigator now. So just be aware of the Navigator. Also, I mentioned that any officer can choose a path for another member. Again, that is a printed path only, and you would then check that box and then continue to path selection. But we're going to be focusing on the logging in as Basecamp manager. And what I wanted to mention is that it used to be that I had a different officer position in one of my clubs, and it was not a base camp manager position. So this login as base camp manager button would actually disappear when I had selected that club, because I wasn't a base camp manager for that club. But when then I selected the club for which I was vice president of education, then all of a sudden my button appeared as login as base camp manager. So it's pretty smart to know who I am. And again, that's all based on my toastmasters.org login. So I'm going to log in. When I log in as base camp manager, you are not yourself. You are club 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or whatever your club number is. That's your profile. That's who you are. You are not, I am not Deb Krumpf when I am logged in there. I am base camp manager for the club, which I logged in as. And there's only one of those base camp managers for the club. So even though we said, well, we have the vice president of education and the secretary and the president, only one of those people can be logged in as base camp manager for that club at one time. And we happened to have another webinar where I was logged in as base camp manager, and then the president of one of my clubs decided on the side while during the webinar to log in as base camp manager, and she kicked me out. So just be careful about that. When you log in as base camp manager for a club, that is what you are. You're base camp manager. You're not yourself. The alternate approach is the newer one that was introduced last summer, which I find to be much easier, and that is to click on my Toastmasters International profile. So once I've logged in, I just click on that Welcome Deborah, and the page I get for members, of course, they can go directly to the transcript, which is time saving, 3 clicks. But for my base camp manager, I can log in over here by just checking that box and then clicking the go. And of course, if I need to, I can change which club now I'm logging in as. So you first change the club, then you log in as base camp manager, and then you click the go. So that's the same options that I have on the Pathway Start page. And again, plus members can go directly to the transcript. We can all choose a new path. One caution here, I will tell you, and it's only going to apply to a few people, but it applies to me. And that is that I found a bug. I haven't reported it yet, I should. But if I have gone in, if I am the Mount Washington Valley Toastmasters, if that's my current club, this login, the TI profile page will say Lakes region. It actually is either alphabetical or number, I don't know which, because Lakes region is alphabetically earlier than Mount Washington Valley, but it's also numerically earlier. And so I don't know which it is, but I can tell you that it doesn't maintain what my actual club is. So if you, as a base camp manager, are a manager of in multiple clubs, you might find that if you go in this way. So that's a little gotcha there. Okay, so then we get to the base camp manager, the base camp start page. And I mentioned this before, when you log in as base camp manager, you are not you. You are the club's base camp manager, and that is the profile. And only one of you can be logged in at the same time. Now I'm going to take a little aside right now, because as I was reminding myself of this whole thing and updating the screens and so forth, boom, if you haven't logged in to Pathways since Christmas, you will be met with a new message, both as a member and as a base camp manager. And that is, here's the little message. It says, hey, we have a new look. As of December 26th, members selecting a path from their Toastmaster profile will notice the process is refreshed, streamlined, and more intuitive. And you have to go back out of Pathways, or in other words, out of base camp, to actually take a look at it. But then what this has to do is the very few times that you pick a path. If you're adding another path, or a brand new member is adding a path, it has been streamlined a little bit so that the language that you want, if you select English or whatever, your language selection, your access type, either online or printed, and if it's online, how you select the path. Do I want to actually go through the assessment, which is great for new members, or hey, I already have a couple paths. I know that this time I want the engaging humor path. And so I just want to go to that and pick that one. Well, you can now pick that way. You can say, I just want the path list with a description versus I don't want to go through the whole assessment now. And that's all on one page. So that's how they mean by streamlined and so forth, is I'm not going page to page to page. It's all on one page, and then you continue on. And it goes to either the assessment or the list. And if you're in the list and you're viewing those paths and your current paths are actually going to be at the bottom, they're grayed out. If you select the view all paths, all projects in this path, you're going to go to another place in Toastmasters.org where it does that. You can see that anytime. To get back to your selection, there isn't really a place on that page to get back. So you have to use that back arrow in your web tab. So you have to back page, and it will go back to your selection, your path selection. That's just a quick little aside because that's a brand new thing that just popped up. All right, let's get back to our Basecamp Manager, our Basecamp start page. And you will see that it looks totally different than an actual member start page. Our member start page, we have 5 of these blue boxes. With Basecamp Manager, we only have 3, and they're different. They are pending requests, member progress, and manager tutorials. Manager tutorials are very important if this is the first time that you are a Basecamp manager. You can click on that, and what you will do is you'll get to a page that has 6 blue boxes, each of which has anywhere from 1 to 6 specific tutorials underneath it. And so you just click on the box, it lists them below it. So I really need to approve a level completion. So I click on level completion, it shows me 2 or 3 different things there, and I can go through those. They're very good. Again, the content in Pathways is very rich, and your tutorials are quite good. Another way to get to your tutorials is, remember, you have that burgundy menu bar. And remember that in your burgundy menu bar, if you want to get to your tutorials and resources, you don't click on tutorials and resources, you hover on it until the little white tutorial and resources box below it drops down, and then you click on that. So remember to hover on that. And that takes you to essentially the same place that you are when you do tutorials and resources when you're logged in as a regular member. However, you will see that when you are logged in as Basecamp Manager, there is a Basecamp Manager listing. And when you're logged in as a member, it's not there. So logging in as Basecamp Manager gives you access to these Basecamp Manager tutorials. And if you click on that Basecamp Manager, it opens tutorials. If you look at the tutorial quick reference guides, and I didn't do it with the drop down because it has all these different languages, but if you click on your preferred language, there are 11 per language that are all PDFs, and they have the different processes. And one of the first things I did in Pathways was download all of those and keep them on my PC. So it's a quick reference if I need to remember how to, again, approve a level completion request. It's right there. It's in PDF. I've got it on my PC, and I don't need to go through the actual show me tutorial, the movie. But once you log in as Basecamp Manager, those tutorials are all there for you. All right, let's pause for a moment and see if there are any questions. And Catherine or Carolyn, if you could tell me how many people said, yes, we have multiple club members.
Catherine, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get back to see the top. So Janet in Wolfville, Lorelei has multiple ones. Marion Taylor has multiple ones. Paul Cunningham belongs to multiple, and that's the only one in his club. So I think that's it. So 4. Is that 4? 1,
Okay.
2, 3, 4.
Okay. And were there any other questions?
No.
Okay.
And my White Mountain does, but that would be because Deb's there too. So she already knows it.
Oh, I'm not in White Mountain. Me,
Oh,
Deb?
I thought you were.
Mount Washington Valley. I know,
Mount
we're in the
Washington.
White Mountains,
okay,
but we
sorry.
have different names of the clubs.
Okay,
One's
so
on the east side of the mountains, one's on the west side of the mountains.
so White Mountain does as well. So it's five different
Oh, yeah. Okay.
clubs.
All right. Yes. Okay, good.
Thank you, everyone, for going on mute to cut down our background. There's still a couple that need to go on mute just to make sure there's no background noise. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. We'll continue on then. Once we've learned through our tutorials how to be a base camp manager, as I had mentioned before, approving our requests, especially our level completion requests, are the #1 action you're going to take as a base camp manager. And that is by clicking that blue box saying pending requests. Now, let's talk about what happens prior to that. When a member, including yourself, when a member completes all the projects in their level, we're talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 levels in a path. When all 3 projects of level 1 have been completed, the member can then open essentially the 4th project, which is the level completion project. And that is just a PDF file that they open. It opens in another tab. And when they close it, then that project and that level is marked as complete in their base camp, in their path. And the base camp software automatically sends a level approvement request to the email address for the club at Toastmasters International. Okay, the members, actually I'll back myself up a little bit. The members level, their project, their level completion project is actually marked pending approval. So their level is actually not totally approved. Now, it used to be that meant that they couldn't go ahead to the next level and look at the projects. But that all got opened up last fall, thank goodness, because now you can do your projects in any order. You can actually jump to level 4 when I'm still working on level 2 or something like that, which is really good. That's saved a lot. But they don't have that level actually totally completed until the base camp manager has approved it. So to know that this is going to happen, that this is needed, Basecamp, the software, sends out an email. And the only email they know for the club is that email address at Toastmasters International, which is the same as the Find a Club email address. You update that in Club Central. So when we're in Club Central, you look at the club contact and meeting information, and there's an email address there. Some people have a Gmail, some people have other things. I'm going to tell you why in the next couple of slides. I strongly recommend using this contact dash and your club number at toastmastersclubs.org. Okay? Now, the reason I recommend that is because if your club website uses free Toast, and I know that many of the ones in our district do, free Toast has built in something specific for Pathways Basecamp managers. If you activate that contact dash XXX, which is your club number, email, there is, I'll show you in the next page how to do that or how your webmaster can do that. And you don't need to set the club contacts to the Basecamp managers, because Free Toast Host automatically routes any email from basecamp@toastmasters.org to the Vice President of Education, the President, and the Secretary of your club. And usually we set the club contacts to different members. Or different officers. We usually set that to the VP of membership, maybe the president, maybe VPPR, and you'll see this in the next page. And so this is a case where Free Toast Host is smart enough to actually redirect mail in different places depending on where it came from. And so then you need to, if you activate this, then you need to set the club email address on Toastmasters International Club Central to that contact-xxx@toastmastersclubs.org. Let me show you that. In Free Toast Host, and this is logged in as an admin, so whoever your Free Toast Host admin is for your club, there is a page on a Contact Us form where you say, check this to enable the contact dash, in this case it's this club number again, @toastmastersclubs.org email address. And you'll notice that the club contacts we've set are the ones I just said, the President, Vice President Membership, and Vice President Public Relations. Once we've done that, then we go back to Club Central and we set that as our club email address. And once we've done that, we can verify that by finding a club and then clicking on that club and saying, hey, email that club. And an email should pop up that says to contact-3596556@toastmastersclub.org. And if you want to go ahead and send an email just as a test, you'll see that when you do this, through this Find a Club, it will be the President, the Vice President of Membership, and the Vice President of Public Relations who receive that email. Hey, I'm interested in being a guest at your club. Are you having the meeting this week? Is there anything I need to know? Et cetera, et cetera. But once you've done that, and that is the email address in Club Central, any Basecamp emails will go to the Basecamp managers, who are, again, the Vice President of Education, the President, and the Secretary. Okay, so when that happens, here's an example of the level completion email that I received. In this case, it says, Dear Vice President of Education. Now, notice, it'll still say Dear Vice President of Education, even if you're the President and you get this email, or the Secretary and you get this email. And again, the reason that the system wants to have 3 of these email address, or 3 officers, is because your Vice President of Education might be in New Zealand for a month, the month of March. Not that I know of anybody who's going to be doing that. And in that case, if anybody completes a level, somebody should take action during that month. And that's now going to be the President or the Secretary. But I get this and it says that a member in my club has reached an important milestone. And in this case has finished level 3 completion in dynamic leadership. And I need to go in approve it. Now, here is something that has to do with the multiple clubs. So we had, 5 people with multiple clubs, with members with multiple clubs. I received this email at 9:16 a.m. on July 11th, and at 11:27, I received another email, and I said, wow, it's being really insistent that only a couple hours later, I get another email telling me I haven't approved it yet. But it turns out that's not what happened. What I failed to notice in those emails is that they came to different email addresses. They came to first contact-3596556, which is Mount Washington Valley. And then the second one came to a different address, contact-1421383, which is Lakes Region Club. And the reason I got 2 emails was because in between this time, with a pending request, Tom Goodwin switched his club in his Basecamp. And when a member of multiple clubs has a pending request and they switch clubs, The newly connected club will get that base camp managers, those base camp managers for that new club will get an email, and the request, the pending request, will move to the new club. So it's especially confusing if someone is a base camp manager in one club, like the first club, because I went then into the base camp manager for the Mount Washington Valley and there was no pending request. And I had to go back and really look and say, oh, wow, he changed his club and I happened to be a base camp manager for the two clubs. If I wasn't, I would know what was going on. So just be aware of that, and hopefully whoever is a multiple club member, you just kind of warn them and tell them not to switch their clubs when they have a request out there. If they can avoid it, that would be good. All right. Once we get an email that says you've got a pending request, we go log in. We log into Toastmasters International with our own login, and we log in to Basecamp as the Basecamp manager, and we click on pending requests. Now here's one where I keep forgetting to do a screen capture with a pending request, and so I don't have one because I always just approve it. And so I grabbed this from an old training that Toastmasters International has. But you'll see a training pending request. If I click on the person's name, it will actually take me to their profile and to their, essentially to their transcript or to their curriculum, if I want to take a look at that. But it tells me what level I'm going to be trying to approve or not. And then over to the right, there are two boxes. One is checkbox, yep, I approve it, or X, nope, I reject it. Now we did have a situation where we had a new member who had done a couple of her projects, but didn't realize that she had not yet finished all of the projects, and she submitted the level request. And after talking to her, rather than rejecting it, we just held it there, and she was able to complete her projects then in reality. And then at that time, the Basecamp manager, the vice president of education at that time, went ahead and approved it. Now, when you click on one of these options, you'll also get a little open box, in this case, approve request, and it's recommended that you type in your name. You don't have to put vice president of education. You can if you want, or at least your initials, because it will record that. It will record the time and date that you were doing that, and then you click the submit. There is nothing that stops you from approving your own levels, except good practice. So good practice is to put your name and your initials, and good practice also is not to approve your own level requests. Just kind of like auditing, it's just another set of eyes and another approval. Now, the reason why there's nothing that stops that is because when you're logged in as Basecamp manager, you're not you. You're the club's Basecamp manager. So the club's Basecamp manager doesn't know that I am actually Deb Krumpf and shouldn't approve Deb Krumpf level requests. So that level of restriction is not built into the system. That's good practice. But really, for the majority of times and the majority of things you do as Basecamp manager, this is it. Your level completion request. Approve it and put in your initials. Now, why would you ever not approve something? Well, if you're in that club, you probably know when that person, and being vice president of education, you probably know very well when that person has given their speeches and has actually completed those projects. So all you're doing is saying, yep, in reality, I know that this person did these things. That's all you're saying. And if you want to check on it, if you want to chat with them, something like that, fine. But as Vice President of Education, you're kind of looking at the agendas, you're making sure if you weren't there, oh yeah, they actually did do that speech and so forth. And which speeches were they doing? And so that's what you're doing here, is you're saying at the end of each level, yep, that person really did do those projects. Now, here's something I was looking for because I kept putting in these comments and putting my initials in and so forth. And I had to look all over the place to try to find them. If you really want to go find them, you actually have to go to the person's transcript, into their path, the curriculum, and into that completion, that level completion project, go into view details, view training details, and then you have to actually click the down arrow here and click into transcript history, and you'll see that it was completed by Club 0142131383, which was that. In that case, this was the Lakes Region Club Base Camp Manager, and I put the comments, Tom completed level 4 requirements in my initials. So that's where you'll see that transcript history on those level completion projects. Okay, what if the request is, yes, go ahead.
Dahlia was asking, so someone can submit the completion request before they complete the other assignments. It lets you sign that completion one up? Well,
if they have mistakenly, if they thought they completed the projects, they go into Basecamp, in their Basecamp, and say, I've completed it. But in fact, if you know, for example, the second project in level 1 is always the feedback, the presentation of feedback. And there are 2 speeches that you're to give, plus you're supposed to be speech evaluator. Well, this person gave a speech, and what you're supposed to do then is take that feedback and either give that speech or a different speech again, and with using the feedback, and be evaluated again, and then be a speech evaluator. Well, what she did was she gave a second speech incorporating the feedback, but she counted as her research speech. So she had never really done that second speech again, but she thought she had. So she went into her Basecamp and marked them all complete. But we went back and we said, wait a minute, you really haven't done all of these in reality. So that was where, again, within a level for each project, the completion is on the member. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so she actually had to have completed the 3 projects. Even though she didn't really complete them, she completed them within Pathways, which allowed her to then to submit it. But if you didn't have one completed, it probably won't let you complete it.
Correct. Yeah. The level completion project is marked pending prior completions or something like that. Yeah, right. So again, what she had said in her Basecamp and what in Pathways was different than what was reality. And so that reality check happens with this level completion request. Okay, just real quickly, if the request is not there, if you go to the Basecamp manager and because you got an email and you say pending request and there's not one there, it could be that someone else, one of the other BCMs, already approved it. So if the president happened to think you weren't going to get to it and went in and approved it, okay. And then again, the member maybe changed their club while request was pending and it went to the new club. So that new email is sent to the new club's Basecamp managers and the request is no longer in the old club's queue. Now, what's the next action? This is a little bit of a rhetorical question because I'm not expecting you all to jump in and say, because you're on mute, what's the next action to take when you as Basecamp manager have just approved a level completion request? The answer is I go out of Basecamp, don't forget, got to get out of Basecamp and submit the education award. This is a separate action, and this is what drives your Distinguished Club Program point. In Club Central, select the member, select the education program. When you do that drop down, you'll see like dynamic leadership level 4, whatever. And if they are multiple clubs, hopefully they've told you ahead of time which club they want to get the credit. Otherwise, go back and ask them, and don't forget to do it. So it's a separate action. It's outside of base camp, but don't forget to do it. I have forgotten, and then I go a day later, oh my gosh, I forgot. I have to go do that. All right, what confirmations do we get? Well, when the level completion request is approved, the member receives an email confirmation. When the level education award has been submitted in Club Central, then the member, the vice president of education, the president, and the submitting officer, because remember that can actually be any officer, receive an email confirming that educational award submitted. And another day later, and you see it pop up in your DCP dashboard for that club. Okay, any other questions right now? I'll keep forward. All right, now if you can go to the text, and just any of you who have any club members, only answer if you happen to have anyone who has selected printed paths. We'll cover that towards the end if there is anybody who has that, okay? So please let Carolyn or Catherine know in the text box. Thank you. All right, next one that I consider to be next important is to view the member's transcript. And it's not obvious how we get there. So again, I mentioned a couple reasons. I want to view it. They were not sure if they marked it correctly, if it's really marked as finished or not. I want to print their level completion certificate. I want to check their project selection, what they happen to be working on. And the only action, I have basically view only into their transcript, except for some reason I'm allowed to activate a project, but I'm never allowed to launch it. I can't do their self-assessment for them. I can't do any of that. In fact, I can't take those, I can't go through any of those even for myself while I'm logged in as a Basecamp manager. It's a whole different interface. But I am allowed to activate a project if I have to, but of course all that does is change the activate to launch, and then they can click it once instead of clicking it twice. It's not obvious how to get there, because if you remember when we log in as Basecamp manager, we just have those 3 boxes, and those aren't any of them. None of those boxes say, hey, go to this guy's transcript. So instead what we have to do is we have to get to the member's profile first. And their way to get that is either to search for the member in the search box, or, and I'll show you that in the next slide, or the way I like to do it is to click on the Basecamp manager profile, meaning who I'm logged in at the time, and click the button that is only there as a Basecamp manager called View Team. So let me show you, and then you click on the member's name. So I can either search in this search box that's up here, or what I like to do is click on this little shadowy guy. And what that does is that brings up the Basecamp manager profile and this little View Team right there. And that's important, because when you click the View Team, that's when this box pops up and says View Team. And it might have multiple pages. I can do a scroll down, and that's going to be everybody in my club. And then I can click on that person, and I go to their transcript. So what happens is then I get underneath that burgundy menu bar, I get that white menu bar, and I can click on transcript. You see, just like as if I were logged in as myself, I see home, I see the name of the person, I see education transcript. I can now open their curriculum, and I will see what the status is. So again, I'm mostly just viewing the training details, and I can activate projects. Now I will say one word of caution here, and that is that, if I back up just a little bit to the last screen, if I have a member who I don't see here, there are maybe 2 reasons. One, they're a brand new member and they haven't yet signed up for a path. Or number 2, they're a multiple club member and this isn't their current club and I won't see them. So I might not see Tom in here because he's he's in a different club right now in his base camp. So again, that's another one of those little things you got to know if you have people with multiple clubs. Okay, so I hit the person's name, I hit the transcript, I hit the open curriculum. And so for example, if I want to look at their level 1 completion, I just go to the level 1, I see all of their projects, I see view certificate, and it pops up into a PDF, just like if I were getting my own certificate. I can save it as a PDF, I can print it, and it's just the same process as printing my own certificate. I think it's great because we've made celebrations out of level completions. So that's a really good thing to do. Any questions?
Deb, there's 10 minutes
Yes.
left.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, just one more area that I want to focus on, and that's our member progress reports. As I mentioned, they're not quite as useful as you might think, although you might get into practice, especially as we move totally out of our legacy projects or legacy program and totally into pathways. We might want to have more progress following, if you will, especially at our officer meetings or something. So there are 5 different member progress dashboards, and you can see their names here, individual progress. We'll go through each one of them. The key thing is that the very first thing you do when you click on any of these is to go up to the upper right corner, say options, do the drop down and say refresh. And you'll see that this will say, it'll pop up, it'll come up and it'll say I last refreshed October 19th, 2019. Then you'll know it's not current. It's not current data. So make sure you come up here and say refresh. And that's very important to do because otherwise it's just not current data. And it takes a while to refresh, like a few minutes. Then once you've refreshed, then what you do is you hover inside and for example, this individual product progress, you'll have all 5 levels. You'll have 5 charts in this that you scroll down to. Each chart, if you hover in the upper corner, you can click down and say view details. And again, what this is quantity, 1, 2, 3, etc., of projects per level that are completed or in progress. And I chose level 2 because everybody has the same projects in level 1, but level 2, you can see that there are different ones. And some of these aren't projects that are in my path, but they're in different paths. I don't have cross-cultural understanding in my path. But when I go then to the details, then I scroll down, it opens up a new little tab, and I can scroll down and it will tell me the names of each person who's doing those projects in their path and whether they've completed or are in progress. So that's a really cool thing to get to know that. So that's a view details. And again, that one's per level. But this path progress is the status of all paths. That's our second choice here. And don't forget to refresh. And that I look at the details and it gives me even more. It gives me path progress of each person within the different levels and so forth. And so it tells me basically what they've looked for and whether they're registered or in progress or so forth. And then, now this one, path type. Now you look at this dashboard and it's either online or printed. And so I don't have anybody in my project, in my clubs who chose printed. So I go and I refresh it and it's going to have 18 or 20 or whatever, however many members I have. And that's going to be 1 bar, as if that's very useful. But if I go to the details, it gives me a really nice list of every member and every path that they have. Notice that Tom has 3 paths. At the time, I only had 1 path. Now I have 2. And that's a nice little list there for me, for reference of what path. This is just a quick little, again, the individual progress is a chart per level per project, completed or in process. Our level two, our 2 is path progress, which is the chart per path title. Remember that there are 11 titles. And so that gives me the details will give me my chosen paths. And also the online versus print path type is the details. It's a nice list of the chosen path titles. The recently selected paths are just anybody new. So maybe if you have a big club, you can be watching that. That's only within the last month when you refresh it. So has anybody picked a new path in the last month? And external training, we're going to just touch on at the end. Active external training. I don't know of any clubs that are using that yet. That's trying to use pathways as in, hey, is it okay? Or I'm just letting you know that I'm going to be doing part of my project at work. And you can approve it or not. All right, so some of the less common actions, again, the members with the printed paths. So Catherine or Carolyn, did we have anyone with printed paths?
I honestly can't answer that question. Not
So nobody said
that
yes.
I'm aware of in my club.
Nobody ended up saying yes. Well, I had asked that question earlier.
Yeah.
So if nobody typed in the text.
Catherine, what can you see by the questions whether there's anybody said yes to that or not?
No, I haven't seen any.
Okay.
Yeah, I doubt it. Like I said, it's less than 0.5% worldwide. The only thing to know about that is that you actually have to progress that person as Basecamp manager. You have to progress that person's projects as well as a level. So it's much more work on the part of the Basecamp manager if a person has a printed projects, and it's only a generic level certificate attachment. Their stuff, the printing comes in 3 different shipments. There's a limited number of paths. Only 2 of them are non-English. The member can have access in Basecamp, but not to all the materials, just to the tutorials, resources, and the feedback badges. And also even the electives are pre-selected. So if someone questions whether they should get printed or not, lead them to the online. It is much more rich, much more flexible, and they can always print the project if they really want to, PDF. Okay, on every project you can download it, you can look at it as PDF, you can print it, whatever. And there is a tutorial specific to how to manage the printed paths. Then the other is this external training request. And again, what that is a person might say, I'm going to do this project for this particular project within level 5 outside of the club. So I want to let you, the Vice President of Education, know, and you have to then go and approve the project, kind of like level completion. And then you have to do that at the initial, and then you have to do that at the completion. And you can take a look at what they've said about what the project is. It's a whole big form that they have to fill out. And it's really each club can decide whether they want to use that process, or if you just say, send me an email that tells me what you're doing outside of the club. The limitations are you can't approve a completion before the completion date, so they would have to go and edit the request. It gets very complicated. It's kind of putting a lot of process into place where instead of just face-to-face communications. So just to wrap up, basic pathways reminders, level completion, don't forget to submit the education award in Club Central, which club will get credit. Members must be current. That means we're coming up on April 1st. If a member has not been marked as renewed by April 1st, their access to Basecamp goes away. As soon as they are marked renewed, their access to Basecamp goes back. That happens on April 1st and October 1st. Basecamp always stores history, even if they aren't members for a few years. Then you're a reinstated member, and your Basecamp, you just pick up where you left off. If you had 2 clubs when Basecamp launched in our district, which was May 15th, 2018, you get 2 free paths. Your first one you selected automatically. The second one you have to send in an email request. If you're in that situation, hopefully you've already picked your second club, your second path, and you have to until this June to do it. Also, of course, this June is the Legacy Award deadline. And don't forget, it confuses members that when they complete a project, it says the little little button says evaluate for 10 days after completion. Then after that, it says launch. And that is being able to evaluate the project requirements back to Toastmasters International. And here's a good thing. There's a generic evaluation. It's in your evaluations in your tutorials and resources. Keep copies of the generic evaluation in the club because people forget to bring theirs, and it's just really good to have some basic ones. In fact, I have all the level 1 ones because they're all the same, and generics. So it's always good to have them there just in case they forget. Are there any questions? We are wrapping up.
Catherine, you want to answer the question?
Lisa has one. I'm not. She said, "Can you explain what you have to do after printing the certificate again?" And perhaps she's thinking about the fact that you approve it in Pathways, you go to Club Central and submit the reward, and then you can go to their individual member transcript, print the certificate.
Yeah, so
and present it
one
at the meeting.
confusing thing is that if you were going to print their level completion, that's actually in Basecamp as Basecamp manager. So your order, if you're going to do that as a practice, you would go into Basecamp as Basecamp manager, you would approve the level request, then go to their transcript, click on the level completion project in that level. So if it's level 1 completion project, click on that says view certificate. It pops up as a PDF in a tab. And then you can just, whatever your browser is, you say save as or print right from there. Then the third thing you do is actually exit Basecamp, go into Club Central, and give the credit, the education award to the person. And then it's printed certificate. So the next club meeting, I bring it up and say, hey, so-and-so finished their level 1. Let's all clap, bring up pictures, Facebook, etc. Does that answer the question? Was that?
I think that's,
Okay.
I'm thinking that's what she was looking for. Now, Janet, yes, Dahlia said it was very useful. Lorelei was wondering if any clubs are using the badges area. I know I've sent a few just to try it.
Yeah, and feedback in general. We practiced that, and I'd love to do another one on that, but there are a few people using it, and that's just kind of I'll say an advanced area to explore.
Once we get people in there a little more often.
Right.
Yeah. And Jana from Wolfville has an interesting dilemma. She's got a member who has 2 paths picked and has finished the icebreaker and won't commit to which path it belongs to and sign it up. So do you have any suggestions for her?
She's got to do two icebreakers. So what does it matter? She should do, basically you have to do an icebreaker for every path. So therefore, whichever path she wants to do the next project in, then she should just assign it to that path. Which one does she want to focus on first? If she wants to focus on both, then it doesn't matter. But she has to do an icebreaker for each path. And don't forget, icebreaker doesn't mean, hi, my name is Deb Krumpf, here's what my education is here, I'm married, I got 2 kids, blah, blah, blah. It's whatever you want. It's anything about any passion that you have in your life. It's anything about yourself. So icebreaker does not have to be the same at any time. It's just something about you, which if you think about it, almost all your speeches are something about you other than one that specifically says, hey, go research something you don't know about. Hopefully that answers the question. But you have to do an icebreaker for each. So I would just say, have the person look at the other projects that are in both of those paths and decide which they want to work on first and put it to that one. Any other questions?
Any more questions, Catherine?
I'm just putting in a summary of the certificate thing for Lisette. And I'd say, Lisette, probably, Deb, are you providing an email address or anything? Like if someone wanted just a little more in depth?
I have one on that document, but if you want to get a hold of me, the easiest way is actually the one I put on there is Deb, D-E-B, dot pathways. Isn't that easy? Now this one's not easy, granitic.com, and that's spelled granitik.com. It's kind of like, there actually is a word granitic spelled with a C. It means made of granite. Like, hey, I'm in New Hampshire. This is the granite state. But that was taken, granitic.com was taken with a C, so we made it a K because that's my last name initial. Okay. So granitik.com. I don't have it on the screen, I don't think.
So I believe, Deb, if you haven't already sent this to Carolyn, it will be sent to her, and then Carolyn will post it with the YouTube video. I
Right,
believe
she has that. Yep.
I believe it takes her 2 to 3 days to get that up. Sometimes the Zoom program is temperamental.
Okay. Then this is just a quick summary of what we talked about. And the most important things as the base camp manager, remember you're not yourself. Your level completion approval is key. Printing the level completion certificates are good. And as we get more and more into it, and with larger clubs especially, the member progress dashboards can be very good for you. And that's it. Hopefully you'll become now a Pathways Base Camp Manager extraordinaire. Okay, not quite French, but it was close enough.
Catherine, did all the questions get answered?
Yes, the only one actually that I just remembered a question my president had that I couldn't answer, and I was looking to see is if I can tell how often people have been into Pathways. Some of the reports give you dates of when you sign them up, but I really can't see.
No, I mean, it would be difficult to go through. It really doesn't even keep track of like how many times I've opened the icebreaker project in my primary path, my first path. I probably have opened it 25 times. It doesn't keep track of that. It only keeps track of when I first activated it and then when I finished it. That's it. And that's a per project thing anyway. So no, there's not really any statistics on that.
Might be in the future. You never know.
Yeah, could be. Could be something that TI would do. I know at the beginning when we were in Pathways Guide training, they had webinars twice a week. Toward the end of that, they did have some statistics that they gave us, but I don't think any of them had time in the system. So I don't even know if they can keep track of that or not. Interesting.
Laurel's noted that they do keep tracks of minutes, and I've noticed that I saw the minute counter on my last project, and I had been through it before, and it still was showing 0, so I'm not sure if it's working accurately.
Good question. Good question. Well, the other thing that is on there is a due date, for example, for each project. We don't use that in Pathways. Again, Pathways is based on Cornerstone On Demand. That's the generic product, software product. And so there are things in there that are used by other organizations, but not in our Pathways implementation.
Well, I'd like to thank Deb. Oh, sorry. I'd like to thank Deborah for her wonderful presentation, and I'm sure we'll go away and take all this wonderful information and put it together to help our clubs be better Pathways camp managers, and we can all learn something. Thank you, Catherine. Thank everyone for attending. Have a safe week, and we'll be sending out invitations in the near future for the next wonderful webinar. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Catherine. So long all. Have a great Sunday night. Rest of it.
You too. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.